Hey guys, welcome back to another video. So today's video is going to be slightly different because I'm in a very particular mood right now. So we are going to be in Clip Studio Paint for today's drawing session. So the thing that I wanted to do, and it's kind of already written on the screen and you probably already saw it in the thumbnail, I wanted to do a little bit of like Pokopia fan art, and I was a little bit hesitant on how I wanted to approach this, but we're going to try our best to do some digital painting in Clip Studio Paint because it's been a while and I always prefer digital painting. I don't even know how to explain it. Kind of like scenery, or there's like a specific kind of texture I think I like when doing anything that's like not figure or human related, I guess. Every time I've done like sketchbook covers or notebook covers, I always paint them on either Clip Studio Paint or on Paint Tool Sci for some reason. So I'm going to be doing that today. So I might struggle a little bit here and there, but the whole premise is that I was going to initially draw a kind of like the Ditto human like character to resemble a little bit like Selwyn. I'm still undecided if I'm just going to play as myself as a little Ditto character, or if I'm going to pick Selwyn or one of my other OCs or something to kind of like base the character off of. And I wanted to include some Pokemon as well. And initially, I only had Mosslax going to be included in the drawing because that's kind of like the thing that I wanted to paint the most. So had him sketched out initially and then popped in our character. But then as I was looking at the entire piece, I was wondering whether or not I should include maybe other Pokemon or should I do a background. I was kind of like torn on how exactly I wanted to approach this illustration. So instead, I thought it'd be fun to kind of put them onto some sort of like rectangular block because Pokopia is kind of like it's not quite sandbox, is it? I don't know how to explain it. It's like a building game. If you're familiar with Dragon Quest Builders, I believe it's the same developers from my knowledge. So I'm super excited for this game. So I just, it's on my mind right now. There's like two things in particular that is like occupying my brain. So one is Pokopia, which is what I'm drawing right now, and two is District 5 or District V for like the VTuber EN kind of server that's going on right now. My brain's filled with like the lore of that, so I'll get into that in maybe another video because I definitely want to do some fan art of the EMS family because that's the one that I watched the most. But back to the drawing. So I believe for sketching, I'll make sure to like put all the brushes and stuff that I use in the description because hopefully they're still available. The sketch pen that I ended up using might not be. I think it might be discontinued or taken off of the material asset store on Clip Studio Paint. But I basically think it's kind of very similar if you can find anything that's like a hard-ish round brush with has pressure sensitivity. It's kind of what I use for sketching for this because it's very similar feeling to how I sketch in Paint Tool Sci. So it just felt a little bit more familiar. So after that, I ended up blocking in the colors because I thought that maybe I would just proceed with just Mosslax instead, and I thought it looked a little bit too empty. So I just started adding in Pokemon kind of like at random. So Oddish, I think, is in the trailer, and I think it's just a cute Pokemon, so I wanted to include it. I'm also adding Rotom, as I think the most recent trailer that we got also showed that there is going to be like DJ Rotom. And Rotom is like a Pokemon that I do associate with Selwyn, so I was kind of excited to see, you know, Rotom to have like some sort of new form. And the fact that, what was I gonna say? So I believe DJ Rotom provides like the music for the game, or like portions of it. I don't know how exactly because the game isn't out yet. Even by the time you guys are watching this footage, I think, or watching this video, it comes out tomorrow for me because this is posted on Wednesday and the game comes out on Thursday officially, I believe. So I want to be able to change the music, and I'm hoping it affects like a good portion of the game because I want to change it to mostly like Hoenn music because that's very nostalgic for me, as Hoenn was like my first Pokemon game ever. So more specifically like Pokemon Sapphire, but yeah. Oh, also I ended up adding Squirtle and I had a hard time drawing him. For some reason, I should have just erased him completely and redrew him. I kept fiddling kind of with his pose. I wanted him like to kind of like sit with his feet outwards and like his hands in front of him because I thought it'd be a cute pose. But because of that, his body proportion kept getting like more squashed, and the way how I ended up painting his face, I just in general just didn't really like. So we'll just have to get through that a little bit later. But I'm excited for this game. For the most part, from my knowledge, and if you haven't seen the trailer, I highly recommend it, especially if you're a Pokemon fan, or just like cozy games, or just like kind of like creature games, I guess, if that makes sense. Because I did see like a post that people who didn't have high hopes for Pokopia were probably people who only played main games. But I'm a super big fan of Pokemon Mystery Dungeon because you get to play as the Pokemon for the game. It's like the main character and stuff. You can swap out your party, go to dungeons and fight. And I always love that type of game. I hope I'm not losing my voice at this point. I don't even think I talked that much today, so it shouldn't be the case. But in Pokopia, you play as like a little Ditto, and it does kind of have like a post-apocalyptic kind of feeling to it. So the Ditto is looking for its trainer, and in the process of that, they take form of like a human-ish-esque to resemble their said trainer, and they meet all these Pokemon to kind of rebuild like a Pokemon world again. So it's just something that's very up my alley, so I was super excited. I wanted like a cozy game. Pokemon related is always like a big plus for me, because I always love the little creatures, the Pokemon, all of them, as well as like it's very nostalgic for me. So being able to see all of the older Pokemon alongside with some of the newer ones should be very fun. I'm very interested into seeing whether or not they're going to include like as many Pokemon as they can, because I would love to have all my favorites in the game if possible, but I know that'll be like so many. Because what are we at for Pokemon? Is it like, are we at 1,000 yet? I actually don't remember, so I'm gonna look it up while I talk about the illustration a little bit more. So at this point, I am changing the color of my sketch to kind of soften up areas, and I kind of wish I cleaned up my sketch just a smidge more. And also, I forgot, I placed the Pikachu, which is like the little Pikachu, kind of pale, sadder, cute version right here. Oh yeah, and I had a question whether or not like, are they like a physical form? Are they like a ghostly form? I don't know if they're like a ghost electric type or something, and I'm like, if they're not physical, do they cast a shadow, you know? So I kind of had Pikachu behind the Moslax. We have Rotom, we have Oddish, we have Squirtle, and then a character kind of resembling Salwin. Let's see, how many Pokemon are there? 1,025. That's a heck of a lot. But if they could include that many, I would be so happy. I have favorites from both like the older and the newer gens. And I think a lot of you guys already know I'm very biased towards like grass type Pokemon. But growing up, playing Ruby and Sapphire initially, my favorite Pokemons I think were more geared towards water types. It wasn't until I think Sinnoh that I started gravitating towards like a lot of the grass types, I probably would say. Because after I played Sapphire, I ended up getting Fire Red, and then later on I got like a DS, I believe, and that's when I could play Diamond and Pearl, and I've already talked about that story, and so on and so forth. But I'm super excited because not only am I glad like the timing just worked out perfectly for me, I have never officially owned my own console that's not like a handheld, if that makes sense. So growing up, I've always had the same device as my brother. Even though like my very first Game Boy Advance SP was like a hand-me-down from my brother, and then after that my parents would try to buy, if they could, both of us the same device, minus like actual consoles, because buying two consoles doesn't make sense in a household, in my opinion, unless like there's like a need for it or whatever. If you can afford it, sure. But the consoles were actually my brother's, and because of that, I always felt like I always had to ask permission if I wanted to, you know, do a game or, you know, buy a game that has to be on his console, because he was more of a gamer than I was growing up. So he would be playing video games a lot more while I'll be like drawing and stuff. But then after that, it kind of like flipped as we got older. So he's been more on to doing other things and gaming a little bit less. And then I've been picking up gaming to kind of give myself a break from drawing because I needed something else to do hobby-wise. Otherwise, like everything I do is mostly crafts or arts. So, or like, I don't know what you can call them, hands-on type of stuff, which I needed a break from. So I picked up gaming again, and I finally have my own console, which is finally the Switch 2, which I was kind of hesitant on buying because obviously price points are very expensive, but also kind of like justifying it, being like, am I gonna play enough games to make the worth, like, you know, buying my separate console from my brother? But it kind of made sense because we live separately now. So yeah, I just don't have access to the console even if we did have to share for some reason. But I can imagine that Pokopia is going to be my most like logged on hours. I played Pokemon Legends ZA a heck of a lot. I played Stardew on my Switch 2 every so often. I mostly played it on the Switch Lite, which you could argue is technically a console, but it's like not dockable, so that's why I'm not counting it per se. It's more like a handheld device like the other ones, and it was a little bit cheaper than the actual Switch. So yeah, enough about me talking about the specific random gaming consoles and devices. So in terms of the process, very similar to how I work just in general for digital art, is that if I'm not planning to do line art, most likely I'll try to clean up my sketch and then lighten my sketch by changing the colors to be a little bit softer after I've done my rough colors. After that, I will merge my layers, and then I will add any kind of like blend mode layers to alter the colors, add more intense shadows or lighting, and then merge that as well, and then we can go ahead and start painting. Now, I don't think maybe I didn't experiment enough with the brush that I've made, so the one that I'm using for I think the entirety of the painting process is my Clover painting brush. And I did notice that there are times that some of the colors do blend or mix a little bit, and it's kind of bothering me. One, I did say that it did not have any blending capabilities, but clearly it does. I blend or like mix colors kind of like manually. I rely a lot on opacity and pressure sensitivity rather than like allowing the colors to mix on their own. And because it's mixing on its own, I'm having a little bit of trouble with control and trying to keep colors very clean and crisp. Every time I have two colors like set next to each other and I lay another color, it kind of gives a little bit more of like a blurred edge or blurred line. So I keep trying to overcorrect and then having to refix it and correct it again. So I'm going to tweak the brush a little bit more. I might release it as a different brush because I would like it to be also just a smidge softer. Something that I haven't really pinpointed is having the perfect kind of like coloring rendering brush for myself. I always find that they just read a little bit too harsh compared to the ones that I use in Procreate for some reason. And I don't know if it's me working on the tablet itself or if it's me working on the iPad. I feel like I have more control. So maybe in a future video, I'll talk a little bit more about that because I've been slowly reintroducing using Clip Studio Paint back on my iPad just to do a little bit of testing. So you might see some footage of that here and there. Maybe I'll include it somewhere for you guys to see because I wanted to test whether or not me disliking inking on that iPad is strictly for Procreate or if it's actually in kind of like the device itself, if that makes sense. Because I've talked about it a long time before, or I guess like every so often, is that if I'm doing line art, I will go into Clip Studio Paint and work on my XPPen tablet. But then if I'm doing digital painting that's not like floral or like nature background-esque, then I will work solely on the iPad because it does give a little bit of that softer look. So I'm going to do a little bit of testing here and there. And I'm still continuously having a very impulsive time every time I go onto the Clip Studio Paint asset and download store. So I always revisit it and try out like many different inking brushes, many different like color brushes, soft brushes, watercolor brushes, marker brushes, and just trying to find stuff that would suit what I'm looking for. Otherwise, I'm just going to do more experimenting on trying to make the perfect brush myself. And I'm probably just going to try my best to learn all the settings so that I can actually tweak it so that it is something that I really enjoy, and then I can thus share it with you guys. So if you guys are looking for a similar look or want to try out something that is kind of something I'm familiar with, you want to give it a go, and then it'll give you guys that opportunity, hopefully. So in terms of this illustration, I did kind of regret a little bit of my Pokemon choices that I ended up drawing. So Squirtle is just because he's one of the, I think, the first Pokemon you're going to encounter, because you encounter Bulbasaur, Charmander, and Squirtle, I'm assuming, at the very beginning to help you have like the abilities to fix up portions of the Pokopia apocalyptic-esque place where it's mostly like rubble and stuff, so you can like plant new grass and water the plants and then make a campfire, I believe is Charmander's. I might be remembering incorrectly. But I ended up including Squirtle because I thought it'd be cute, and he was one of my very favorite starters from Kanto, so wanted to include him. Also, I'm just like a big fan of turtles in general, so yeah, it's just major plus for me. But color-wise, I should have picked some other colors or like other Pokemons to bring more color into the piece. So I do like the fact that how Squirtle and Rotom are placed. They're very bright and they kind of correlate with each other a little bit because of their colors. That light blue kind of matches. Oddish blends a little bit too much with the grass-ish colors. Pikachu's very much like hidden, which I initially wanted, but because of that, he's very hard to see. So it would have been nice if I had maybe like more of a pink or another orange Pokemon or something purple that's on the lighter side, just to bring more of like that softer color back in. Everything reads very green, very leaning towards like cooler colors, but then I made my lighting a little bit warmer on the side. So yeah, I don't know how I feel about this piece, but it was still fun to kind of paint and feel out while working on Clip Studio Paint. So hopefully you guys enjoyed watching me do a little bit of digital painting, Clip Studio Paint like this, and I'll talk to you guys next time in the next video. Hopefully you guys enjoy Pokopia as well, if you do plan on getting it too. Bye!